Hey everybody, welcome into the Windy City Breakdown. Tony Andracki here, joined by Andy Martínez and Kyle Millinowisch. And I hit my computer on the first second as we were doing this intro. So if you're watching the video version on YouTube, you'll see a little shake. It wasn't an earthquake in Northwest Chicago, I promise you. But we have a lot we're going to get into. It's all almost all Cubs related. We'll do a little Bears at the end. But I think the best way to lead off this is I've never seen a team this good be this mid. A direct quote from very own Andy Martínez talking about the Cubs. Andy, we'll start with you. I mean, two of the worst. I have some stats for this too, but like just initial reactions on this West Coast trip. We're recording Wednesday morning before the finale against the Diamondbacks and the finale of this road trip. But two of the worst losses of the season, I would say, have come in the last like 3-4 days.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real chance we were talking about we would be talking about today on Wednesday, the Cubs going for a perfect 6-0 road trip, right? Like that's how things could have broken a little bit differently for them on this road trip. But yeah, that quote I gave you guys, it's so true, right? Like sometimes you see them play and you're just like, man, like it's like they were clear World Series favorites. Like it's not
Yep.
even a question, right? Sometimes when you watch them play, and then it's just these holes or these weaknesses on the team that we've seen throughout spurts of the year just keep popping up, and it's kind I don't want to say I'm worried or alarmed yet, but the radar is definitely up with Jacob Webb, right? With the blown save on and I know the three of the runs were on Palencia, but like the not getting the final out on Tuesday night, the blown save in Seattle when he had two outs and again was an out away from getting it. Like I mean, if you would have told me there was some regression coming, given how good he'd been, it's not surprising, right? Like you knew he wasn't going to throw 50 straight scoreless appearances, but like it is a little concerning that this is your closer and he has blown two saves, essentially back to back. So that's a little concerning. And then like, I mean, we see it in spurts, and this isn't a good time to highlight it, but right, like the offense struggling, right? The offense, whether it's parts of the lineup going cold, and you see those things, the bullpen, the offense going cold, you see these things and you start wondering like, can they even make it out of the wild card round, right? That's when you start worrying about like this team that is so good and clearly so good, 20 games over 500 or whatever it is now, but is also like so flawed that I think the range of possibilities of what they can do in the playoffs could be a 2-game sweep, getting swept in 2 games in the wild card, or making it to the World Series. Like it's kind of a wide array of what they could be, and I don't think there's that much uh, fluctuation amongst some of the other contenders like the Dodgers or Brewers. Really,
Why do you think this is such a flawed team? Like, in what aspects?
I mean, like I mentioned, just like the areas of the team that go cold, right? Like we've seen bullpen struggles in the year, and I know a lot of it earlier in the year, and I know a lot of that was like injury related, right? But like now you see Jacob Webb struggling, and we've mentioned like the concerns with Daniel Palencia, and like I know there's all these depth options. I know there's so many options. Like I'm not dismissing that, right? Like Hobie Milner's probably going to spend as much as he can on a rehab assignment just because like they're so deep right now in the bullpen, but like do any of those guys, like how many times have we talked about like it's not a really big strikeout bullpen, and I know the defense is good, but like we've seen some flaws with Brian Zefferjon, the web concerns, and then the hot and cold nature of this offense, which I know can go to anyone else, but like that's kind of the concerns of what I think is with this team, where it's like I if you told me they made it all the way to the World Series at the end of the year, like wouldn't be surprised, but if you also told me that they lost in the wild card round, I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, I feel like you could almost say that with damn near any of the teams that are in the playoff picture right now, though, correct? Like, what team in the playoff picture right now would you be surprised if they made it to the World Series or got swept? Like, even the Dodgers, if the Dodgers somehow got swept in the wild card round, yeah, that would be surprising. But would it be like the absolute, would it be the biggest upset in the world? I don't think so.
I
And
mean, I
then
think
I
it
think
would
it,
be because they're probably there's a good chance they don't go to the wild card round, right? Like they'd have to really collapse to
well,
like
yeah,
go
but
to the luck. So like, and I think like we haven't seen like the Dodgers had their big losing streak, but like the Cubs had a 10-game losing streak and a span where the offense was just like
ass.
you don't know what it is, right? Like, and who's to say that doesn't come back in October, right? And like who's to say PCA doesn't go through a slump in October? Like I just think there's so many more question marks and so much more variability than like, well, you know what Shohei Ohtani is. The Brewers have an ace and Jacob Mizraski at the top of their rotation. Like, it's a little bit different when it's like, well, Clay Holmes has looked really, really good and threw 7 shutout innings on Tuesday, but like, is that rotation super deadly? You come October, or like really, really scary. Like, do they have that guy that you don't want to face in a game 1 or in an elimination game? I don't think so. And the offense, like I mentioned, is a very deep lineup, but if they go through a slump, kind of like they did in extra innings in the first game in Seattle, that wouldn't surprise me either.
I think, Kyle, do you have a point on that, right?
I was going to say game 1 starter, Clay Holmes.
Yeah.
Contraire.
I think that's going to be a really interesting debate as we get into the rest of the season. We'll kind of save that for another time right now, who starts game 1 for the Cubs. But I do think, Andy, in response to the bullpen and the offense, is that I think that's just kind of how it goes. The bullpen is a bit more scary for the Cubs because you don't have these guys who have done it before. Even last year, there were guys like Kittredge and Keller and even Pomeranz who like have maybe done it before on some level. Keller not as a reliever, Kittredge more underrated, and Pomeranz was several years before, right? But like this bullpen looked like a strength of the team at this point a year ago. It doesn't right now. And when you have Palencia and Webb, your 2 guys, like your best arms, the 2 guys, if you're only going to use 2 relievers in a playoff series, it would be those 2 guys probably. And they both struggle. Like, that just happens sometimes. I mean, Jacob Webb went 2 full months without giving up a run. Like, that will happen. And the offense, I think that's just baseball in 2026. And really the last, decade, we've seen continued decline in batting average. And like, I think offense is just going to slumps. The Cubs are maybe a little bit more prone to that than others because of the identity of these guys, because of who they are as, their personality as hitters. Ian Happ is streaky. Dansby Swanson, when he's healthy, is streaky. Seiya Suzuki this year, I feel like has been more consistent, but is notoriously pretty streaky. PCA is, started out really, really cold and then has been really, really hot for like 3 months. So it's just kind of what this group is. But I think it's also the main point you're making, Andy, is exactly why you don't want to be in wild card. It's why you want to get to a 5-game series or a best of 5 series rather. And why your chances of winning the World Series go way higher if you get that first round bye, because you take some of the randomness out of this. If your offense could have a tough time in a best of 5 series and you could still grind your way through it, if your offense isn't hitting in a best of 3 series, you're probably losing. That's just the way that it goes. It's just how randomness it is. So I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, look at it last year, right? They lose the first 2 games in Milwaukee, then come back and win the next 2 games because there's a little bit larger of a sample size. And, if Clay Holmes hypothetically is your game 1 starter, let's say he has a bad game, right? Like the sinker plays up a little bit and gets hit out of the ballpark for more home runs. Now your back's against the wall with Kevin Gausman, maybe, who's like, I trust his playoff pedigree, and like I think that's a solid number 2 option. But like in a winner go home game, like it is a little bit scary. And then you're probably going to your bullpen early that we have mentioned, or that you also just mentioned has some flaws.
I do feel better about both of those situations than a month ago, right? Because of Clay Holmes 100%, and Gausman. 100%. Like, I'd feel better about Gausman than, Edward Cabrera or Shota Imanaga or David Peterson or, whatever a month ago that we were discussing. And in the bullpen, I mean, some real momentum, some positive momentum on Ben Brown and Justin Steele, which we'll get to in a bit. But as we're talking about this, there are 2 stats that kind of blew my mind about, and you might have seen them around social media here, but that came out of Tuesday night's game. The Cubs had 30 unanswered runs, which set a franchise record. You guys see that? Like, that's all an interesting stat that I've never really thought much about. But 30 unanswered runs, I mean, because they had all 19 on Sunday, and then what? 7 on Monday, and then 4 last night, Tuesday night, before the Diamondbacks, scored 5 unanswered themselves. But I just thought that was a really interesting stat and kind of illustrated like a good 3 days for the Cubs, and the fact that they scored 30 unanswered runs over 3 games and somehow only won 2 of them seems like a weird bit of like trivia.
Yeah, and that loss yesterday is just a kick in the dick, though.
It is.
Like yeah, the 30 unanswered runs is that has to be the most baseball type of nugget ever. Like when you ever hear, I mean, obviously in basketball, you hear, 30 or, 15-0 run, or what was the run UConn went on against Illinois a couple years ago in the Elite Eight? It literally was like 34-0 run.
Yeah, it was like 34-2, I think. It was something crazy. Like just
Somehow
ended
they
the game in the first half.
Yeah,
or
they
whatever.
waxed them. But yeah, like it's crazy to think they went on a 30-0 run over a span of 3 games and only won 2 of the 3 games. They didn't even win all 3. It's like,
And so
fuck.
the other stat that blew my mind that relates to that is before Saturday, the Cubs were 60-0 when leading after 8 innings. They were undefeated this year, 60-0, and lost Saturday with 2 outs, nobody on, up to Jacob Webb ends up giving up 3 runs and they lose, and then lost Tuesday night when they were up 4-0 at one point after the
in
8th
the
inning. They
8th
were
with
still
2
up
outs.
4-3. Yeah, you're right. In the 8th with 2 outs, right? So they were 60-0, and they're now 60-2, or maybe you know what? Maybe they weren't 60-0, whatever, because
Yeah, they were.
technically on before Saturday, the way I phrased it was wrong because both Monday and Tuesday they were leading after 8 innings. So whatever, they were 58-0 before Saturday, and after leading after 8 innings, and they have the only 2 losses of the year leading after 8 innings came Saturday and Tuesday. It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. And staying up
Did
late
you
for that
guys-
game sucked even worse.
Yeah.
You know, so 2 things on that. I had to catch up because I went 4-0. I was like, game over. I'm going to bed. I was tired.
Same.
It was whatever. I was done. And then I looked Kyle's first message that he sent to us, and he says, "I hate sports."
Yeah.
And I thought it was like someone on the Bears got hurt or something. Like I don't know. Like I did not think it was anything Cubs related. And then I saw what happened in the Cubs game. I was like, that is rough.
Yeah, I knew you were going to be fucking cheesing at that. I knew you were going to love that when you woke up to it. I hated it.
The second thing too, I don't know if you guys saw Megan Montemero's tweet. She said Chase Field. I'm reading it right now. Chase Field has been cursed place for the Cubs the last few years with a bad loss each time. Tuesday night, 2-out, 2-run walk-off home run after being up 4-0 in the 8th. 2025, Arizona scores 8 in the bottom of the 8th in a 10-6 comeback win. That was the game where Eli Morgan gave up.
Never saw him again.
Yeah, literally never saw him again. 2024, the walk-off loss in 10 innings after blowing the late lead.
Was that the Dansby
And then 2020. No, it's 2023 was the Dansby play. Arizona scores 2 in the bottom of the 13th for 7-6 walk-off win. And that was the one where the ball kind of like bounced weird on Dansby, and if it doesn't, they probably make that out. And remember, they missed out on the tiebreaker to the Diamondbacks. They win that, they're in the playoffs in 2023.
Plus, what happened in 2016 in Arizona, Kyle?
Stop. The Cubs took 3 of 4. I know that. Jake Arrieta hit a bomb off Shelby Miller, and that's all I'll remember.
Yeah, right. You don't remember the fact that Kyle Schwarber got his leg absolutely blown up. So maybe Arizona just is a cursed place for the Cubs. Weirdly.
Yeah. Yes, I do remember that.
Where they have their spring training home is a cursed regular season place for the Cubs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so, all right. So, like, how much do you guys put stock in these bullpen issues on Saturday and Tuesday? Now, Jacob Webb is a huge part of both of them. Palencia Tuesday was interesting, right? I think you'd feel really good about it. Craig Counsell deserves no blame, in my opinion, because you got Palencia up 4-0 in the 8th. You want to get him some work, ease him back into high leverage. That's a perfect opportunity to do it. He hits a dude in the face. He looked a little rattled after that. He walked the next hitter.
Yeah.
Ended up having a really weird that Gabriel Moreno ball down the right field line of the first base line. I've never really seen anything quite like that. That was absolutely perfect. It looked like something weird out of a video game glitch. And then gives up 3 runs. Jacob Webb gets out of that, like you said, gets down to like nearly getting out of the 9th inning and closing out, and gives up a 2-run walk-off homer. And on Saturday, I mean, you get retired the first 2 guys, and you're up 2 runs, 2 outs in the 9th, nobody on. You feel good about it, and then all of a sudden he gives up a hit, and another hit and a homer and bam. Like, so I don't. How much stock, Andy, do you put into the bullpen struggles? Is this just a blip on the radar, or do the Cubs have some legitimate bullpen concerns?
So, and I'll preface to say, like what I said earlier about like the bullpen concerns, I think are real. I think there is also like you mentioned 58 or 60, whatever it is, and like I guess the law of probability says like you eventually have to lose one of those games. So like maybe part of it is too like you were just due to lose one of these games. But yeah, it's kind of a weird thing where like you mentioned the Palencia thing. Like part of you like I think if you're a fan, it's fair to be like, well, what if Palencia isn't a leverage guy, or like what if like he's regressing? Like all of that is fair, right? Like theoretically, you could argue Palencia's only done this for 3/4 of a season, right? Like he became the closer like in May of last season and was essentially the highest leverage guy from then on out. Um, so you could argue like maybe he's due for some regression and bullpen arms are volatile and all that, like yada yada yada. That's fair. Like I think that is fair. Jacob Webb, same thing, right? This is a guy who is kind of essentially a depth bullpen arm and has clearly outperformed even probably their best projections that they had on him. So like I think all of those things are fair. I think my concern with the bullpen is like just going back to what I said earlier is just there's not a ton of strikeout, right? And again, the defense is so good. The defense is the best in baseball, could be historically great, and maybe I shouldn't be concerned about it. But like I feel like the ball in play just always creates an element of randomness, right? Like
It does, yeah.
like as good as your defense is, a ball could take a weird bounce like it did on Dansby Swanson in 2023, and maybe you lose a game. A ball maybe could be a foot away from PCA and he can't catch it, and it lands for a double, and it's the difference in a game. When you have a strikeout bullpen, it just eliminates some of that randomness, and it creates more certainty. And I know Craig Counsell loves like just outgetters, but like I think he
Strikeout
would.
getters.
Yes, like everyone would want strikeouts, and I think that's just the biggest concern with the bullpen is like, come October, like the ball in play, maybe that could be the difference, and I think that's what is concerning about the bullpen is just not having as many strikeout guys as some other bullpens in Major League Baseball.
I don't disagree with that at all. And the Cubs are 22nd. Their relievers, I should say, are 22nd in baseball with a 21% strikeout percentage. You look at the top teams. I mean, Cleveland. I feel like Cleveland always has a good bullpen. Obviously, they had Class A, and now who's it? Cade Smith. Is that the guy's name at the back end of their bullpen there? Yeah, he's phenomenal. But then it's the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Padres, the Brewers, right? Actually, the Angels are up there too. But like, the top-notch teams have those guys at the back end of the bullpen that aren't having the ball put in play. And yeah, I mean, granted, what was it? Gabby Moreno, the expected batting average on that check swing he had was .080. So like under 100. Like how would you phrase it? It's like
an 8%
8% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is just like insane. And even like the Geraldo, is it Geraldo Perdomo? Geraldo?
Yeah.
Not Geraldo?
No.
Damn, dude. I cover baseball. His expected or his average or the exit velocity on his ball was 83. Like it wasn't a hard hit ball. It just, it found the right spot. So it wasn't like Palencia was getting knocked around, but it's the walk, it's the hit by pitch, right? It's the wildness where you have guys on base and then you're setting yourself up for bad luck, right? In my opinion, I think it's you look at it in like kind of just like a one-off type of view. Palencia's just coming back off the IL. What was this? His second appearance off the IL, I believe. So, hopefully he returns back to form like we've seen him in the past. And Jacob Webb was, like you mentioned, Tone, he didn't give up a run for 2 months. So he was definitely outperforming his projections overall. He was due for regression. It just sucks that it happened in the 9th inning and back-to-back outings. And obviously a time where the Cubs needed him to obviously not give up a run. So my perspective, what did you just retweet? Brad Brown is experiencing symptoms again?
So that's
what the hell?
I was going to say. So another like blow to the bullpen, I feel like, is we were going to talk about real optimism.
Knock
about
that
Ben
smirk
Brown
off your face, Andy.
And
it's not a smirk. No, no, it's not a smirk.
No
Taylor
smirks.
McGregor, our former colleague at Marquee, she just tweeted from Wednesday in Arizona. Ben Brown is experiencing symptoms again after his outing yesterday. He had a little like sim game thing for a couple innings. Ben Brown will fly with the team back to Chicago and consult with doctors to determine what's next. That probably means his season is done. If he's experiencing real symptoms again after this stress fracture reaction in his neck, it's such a weird injury, right? You don't often hear pitchers with something, right-handed pitchers with like the left side of their neck essentially taking away, a half a season 2 years ago and a half a season this year, and they thought they figured the problem out, and it isn't sorted through now. That's like alarming. That's I don't know. I think there's real concern about like we'll get into that, but like I just wonder how much he will be able to be healthy this offseason and get into next year, like what his career looks like if he can't get this figured out. But we'll wait and kind of see what these symptoms are and what's going on. But definite concern. I mean, yeah, I think at this point any initial reaction you guys have, but mine is I don't think Ben Brown's going to pitch for the Cubs now this year.
That's mine.
Yeah, I don't think he's pitching again this year because, I mean, even like let's say best case scenario, and this is a hypothetical, and we're literally just discovering this out as we're recording. Like best case scenario, what he shut down for like 2 weeks, and then he has to ramp up. Like by the time he ramps up, even as a 2 inning pitcher, like it's the wild card round, and if they're done in the wild card round, he's not pitching.
Yeah, I mean, the only way that this would end up okay is if like it's just some weird soreness, but I don't think they would frame it as experiencing symptoms.
Correct.
If that were the case. So, yeah, that's a huge blow. He was a guy that I thought was not a lock, but I thought he was the best chance of these guys to come back and to not only return but to make an impact. I mean, Justin Steele, definite positive news there. He's going to throw another sim game or whatever, live bullpen or something. And then it seems like he'll go on a rehab assignment based off what he's been saying here. He also pitched yesterday. Reports are good as far as we know so far. That'll be really cool. But like the Cubs also want to take the long view with the guy who hasn't pitched in a year and a half. Like Ben Brown just pitched a few months ago. There was always a little bit easier ramp up period for him than for Steele. So yeah, that's a big blow. He was a guy that I was mentally sort of counting on for this Cubs team to be a factor in the bullpen down the stretch in the playoffs.
You sound devastated right now.
I mean, I think it's just I feel like I like Ben Brown. I mean, talking to him and covering him for a few years, like I just think it's a really interesting in a weird way, like injury. It's just not one that we see often. But I like the guy, and I think what he's meant to the Cubs is huge this year, has been huge. And I thought what he kind of symbolized down the stretch, I was sort of penciling in like either Brown or Steele, potentially both in a best case scenario. And then, you have Palencia and Webb and guys like Rollison and stuff, and that's how you sort through. But like Hunter Harvey's not a factor. He's basically done for the year, right? Phil Maton's done for the year. He's on a 60-day IL. They haven't said it for sure, but he's not coming back timeline wise. So it's like all these kind of impact relievers. And Zephyr John hasn't looked great in a Cubs uniform. Some of that is luck too, but I just think I do think it's a devastating blow to the bullpen if Ben Brown doesn't come back at all. I think the Cubs playoff chances go down a little bit if that's actually the reality.
I mean, I think that was a way to mitigate some of these bullpen concerns, right? Like this is a bridge guy, or this is, I always think of like the Keegan Thompson, Justin Steele example in 2021, right? Where like the rotation just wasn't pitching deep, but they had a really good three-man bullpen that was a high leverage situation. And Thompson and Steele were great bridge guys. Like I thought of that as Ben Brown, right? Where maybe you don't want Clay Holmes or Gossman or Peterson or whoever facing a third time through, so you pull them in the fifth inning. Ben Brown gets you to the seventh, and now you have Palencia and Webb or Rollison or whoever to cover those final 8 or 9 outs, and you're taking away outs from the bullpen, and I think that's what's alarming about this.
Plus, he's a guy who misses bats too, like you said. Andy.
Is
that what you're going to say, Kyle?
I was going to say, we were talking earlier about like getting strikeouts. Ben Brown this year has a 24.5% strikeout percentage, and that obviously would increase in the bullpen, like increase the whole bullpen strikeout percentage. Is a guy that if you second and third one out, you need a strikeout. He can get that, and right now, that sucks. You're right, Tone. That's a bad injury for the Cubs.
Yeah.
And I think his strikeout rate was down this year because as a starter too, like
Yeah, it was
you're
by
pitching maybe a little bit different.
1% though.
Oh, was it by only 1%? Okay, all right.
25.6% last
But
year.
I think that even just the 2-pitch mix would have been even more better in a short burst, like as a reliever.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to take
No, I was gonna say real quick in 2023 or 2024 and 2025, each year he had a 30% strikeout rate as a reliever. This year he was 24% as a reliever, so still higher than what the Cubs are at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the potential too, the upside, right, is there with a guy like him versus, I don't know, even Trent Thorne, who's gotten outs, but I don't think anybody believes
like a
that Trent
2%
Thorne's going to
strikeout
suddenly
rate.
turn into a 30% strikeout rate guy. So, all right, we got to take a quick break here. But before we go, we like to leave on a little trivia. Andy, did you have this?
I do have a trivia. So, kind of on Kyle, you tweeted this the back-to-back 7-inning performances by 7 shutout innings performance by the Cubs starters. This year, the Cubs have not had a starter record an out in the 8th inning. Everything's been their max has been 7 innings. In 2016, how many times did the Cubs have a pitcher record at least 1 out in the 8th inning or later? I'll give you the answer after our commercial break. All right, guys, I gave you the trivia question. Do any of you guys have a guess how many times a Cubs starter in 2016 recorded at least 1 out or more after the 7th inning?
I'm gonna say 23.
16.
Tony, you are damn close. It was 22 times in 2016.
Wow, I almost said
They
16
recorded.
first, Kyle, but then I was like, I think it's more because I remember just from covering it, they had Arrieta and etc. They had guys that were just going so deep into games.
Arrieta did it 22 times himself.
Probably.
Last year, the Cubs had 3 instances where a pitcher recorded at least 1 out or more in the 7th inning. Matthew Boyd did it twice.
Against the Yankees.
Did it once. Boyd against the Yankees. Yep.
Boyd against the Cardinals. Or Boyd only did it once.
No, Boyd did it twice. Managa did it once.
Boyd against the Blue Jays.
No, he gave up that homer to Vladdy. I remember that. Yeah, everybody remembers that.
I don't know. Who was it or when was it?
Yeah, I don't know. Did Shota do it against the Diamondbacks?
Shota did it against the Padres on April 4th. And then
the home opener.
Yep, and then Matthew Boyd did it against the Nationals in a 2-0 loss.
At home or on the road?
On the road.
So wait, so the Cubs have 0 this year, you said?
Correct.
Have they ever had a season with 0? Do you know?
That's going to take a little bit more. Yeah, that's more of a Kyle research question.
All right.
Monologue for 30 seconds. I'll find this.
If it's Andy and I talking, it's just a dialogue, not a monologue. Well, we'll do that.
Filibuster.
We'll filibuster. Okay. All right. So before the break and before Andy's cool trivia question, we were just talking about the bullpen problems. We got the Ben Brown news. Obviously not great. We'll continue to react to that. Next week's episode, we'll probably have quite a bit more information on Brown's status. At this point, my gut is we'll be talking about Ben Brown being done for the year and questions about next season in his career. I think if these symptoms are the same spot and the same issue popping back up again, I do want to talk about the issue from Monday night. It's just so rare, and Kyle, you tweeted from the Windy City Breakdown account of Ryan Flaherty. Did a quick.
They have never had a pitcher not going to the 8th inning. Boom!
Wow, and they have 4.5 weeks or whatever to finish that up. So
in 2021 they only had 2. In 2017 they only had 4, which is kind of crazy.
If it didn't happen the last 2 nights, especially last night when Holmes was a little bit more economical with his pitch count, I think that it doesn't happen.
I think we are watching a historic Cubs starting pitching season.
Wow. Already history with the 30 unanswered runs and a couple other things I feel like this year, but I feel like it's history and how many guys on the roster have hit 10 years of service time at once. Too. That's been like 6 guys this year. But anyways, so Monday, the Quentin Berry stuff, maybe he's unfairly getting kind of characterized or whatever as like the headliner of this, but he was stealing signs, figuring out what Merrill Kelly was doing, the Diamondbacks pitcher, how he was adjusting his grip and his glove. I don't know exactly what he was doing. The Diamondbacks were not happy about it. And a lot of the like footage was really cool. And Kyle, you tweeted from What Do You See Breakdown, Cubs bench coach Ryan Flaherty just like hurling obscenities at the opposing dugout. And I just thought it was like a super interesting. You don't see that very often, like just coaches going back and forth with other coaches. Then Merrill Kelly spent like an inning and a half, like just hanging out right behind Quentin Berry, like a few feet away from him in the dugout, just trying to figure out what Quentin Berry was doing and how he figured it out. The Cubs then go on that inning, like Porter hits a homer, Carson Kelly hits a homer. They like, just end up drilling the Diamondbacks in that win. But God, I'm blanking. Merrill Kelly said that it's bush league for the Cubs to do what they were doing. He said it's bullshit that they were trying to figure out what signs, either the signs or his grip in the glove, whatever it was. And I don't really understand teams trying to steal signs, because they found that what Quentin Berry was doing was perfectly legal, by the way. He was in the coach's box. Sometimes coaches can move down the line and see something when they're a little bit closer to home plate, see what the catcher signs are, whatever. Obviously, everybody uses pitch count now, but like there's other ways around that. As long as you're in the coaching box, what you're doing is legal. And Torey Lovullo, Diamondbacks manager, even came up and apologized. But I just don't understand Merrill Kelly's point of like bush league. Why even have signs if it's bush league for you to try to steal them? The whole point of it is to try to have the other team not know what you're doing, and then their job is to try to figure out what you're doing. Like, it's just been part of baseball since baseball was, around for 150 plus years. Like, this is what baseball is, right?
No, we got him.
We got him. You froze on our end. Sorry.
Was he stealing signs or was he tipping his pitches?
That's what I was going to ask.
I don't know.
I would think, right? Like, the whole reason PitchCom was brought in was to avoid stealing signs, right? Like, I don't know what I haven't looked at the side angle or like tried to research the side angle of like, could you see the buttons from where Quentin Berry, like, and even so, like, you've got really great eyesight if you can see the little buttons, and most catchers cover it up. And like, I don't know, there's the sign stealing, I think, was kind of like weird to me. Like, I think it was clearly tipping pitches, if that's what I had to guess, right? Like, clearly Q saw something in like what Kelly was doing. And I think Kelly said it too. I think I read it in The Athletic that they knew when it was changeup essentially, and was able to signal, especially the left-handed hitters, when it was a changeup. And to me, like, that's fair game, right? Like, I think of the wild or the division series last year where Shota Managa's pitching in game two of the DS, and William Contreras is standing on second base and lifting his arm like this.
Oh yeah.
Base. And
we started some drama with that.
And no one ever confirmed if it was ever a pitch tipping, and like no one ever like said like whether or not it was, but like I would have to guess that William Contreras was probably doing that he saw something, whether it was in Imanaga's glove or his mannerisms, or maybe even like in the catcher setup, right? Like, all these things are very much fair game. Like, I think the quarrel I have, or like maybe like what I like, the Merrill Kelly calling it bush league is like, well, he's in the heat of a moment of he's going through a tough season, right? Where he's got over a 5 ERA, negative WAR, like, this is all in the back of his mind, and he has a bad start for a team that's also trying to get into the playoffs, and like, he's probably frustrated, right? Like, you lose like this, it's fair to be frustrated and be pissed off, but like, maybe in the heat of his moment, maybe he realizes like, maybe bush league wasn't the right statement, but like, that is all fair game, right? Like, if the Diamondbacks saw something and showed him Managa, they're not it's fair game, right? And I'm just using Shota as an example. I'm not trying to throw him under the bus, but like,
I think Shota's a good example, because I think even on Sunday, Sunday, right, that he pitched against the Mariners. I mean, JD sort of alluded to it, that it was like they almost knew what was coming, right? Like, Josh Naylor was like jumping up, taking a big step in the box when Shota was throwing the splitter. And this has happened before. There's been questions, at least, definitely in the playoffs last year, as you mentioned, Andy, and credit to you because you were the one who
Oh
first
no,
noticed that
Tone,
and
what are you doing?
alerted everybody at Marquee about it, and I know you like the Cubs, talked to the Cubs and stuff even about it, but like um but yeah, I think with Shota, he's been at the forefront of this. I think guys with split fingers always have to do this. I still remember, over a decade ago, Ryan Dempster would do that little glove waggle, and that was to throw the other team off because they could see when he was fiddling around in his glove to have the split finger grip on the fastball. So I feel like guys who have split fingers, particularly, are susceptible to this. But for whatever reason, I feel like through the first maybe not the first year because Shota had such a easy first year, but the last 2 years, I think that teams have been trying to do this all along, and there's been some element of potentially tipping pitches from Shota. There's been questions for sure. He's been asked about it. It's something that the Cubs have been asked about, and I know they're trying. That's not something they like talking about, and they don't want to like publicly say, "Oh yeah, he was tipping pitches," and like alert the other team to the fact that they're susceptible to it. But I think Shota has been at the forefront of this. And whenever it's happened, I can't think of a time where the Cubs are like pissed at the other team that they figured out what he was doing. They're just like, hey, we gotta circle the wagons and do this better and make sure the other team does not know what's coming.
Did
I was
you
going to
see
say
in
too
the
quickly.
yesterday?
Sorry,
And no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I
Your
was just going to
point's
say
probably
really
more
quickly. Mark
valid.
Leiter Jr. Remember, he would always set up split first, no matter what, and then go to like whatever he was throwing off for that. To your point.
Did you see? I mean, actually, you probably didn't because you guys are little. I was gonna say little girls. You guys are. You guys are act like children and go to bed early. There we go. That's probably the better way to say it. But in the eighth inning yesterday, when PCA was up, Michael Bush was on, or who would have been on? Maybe it was. Pardon me. It was Ian Happ that was up, and Bush was on second. Bush was doing like what William Contreras was doing last year, where he was signaling. He raised his right arm and kind of signal that the ball was going to be outside, and it was. It was a fastball up just out off the outside corner, and you could see Gabby Moreno right after, and he is kind of just like motherfucker. And then every other pitch after that, he set up right down the middle and then moved as the pitch was coming. So I mean, it just goes to your point of it's just gamesmanship, right? It's like that part of the game is allowed, right? So what Quentin Berry was doing was perfectly within the white lines.
Yeah, I can understand somebody being upset if it wasn't, but everybody acknowledged that it was happening legally after the fact, right? And I can also even empathize with the Diamondbacks being frustrated in the moment because they probably think that it's not, right? And it's easy to think, but they go back and I give Lavello a ton of credit. It's why I think he's one of the most well liked and well respected guys in baseball, let alone managers. He comes out and apologizes, which I think is like really interesting, right? And acknowledging like, hey, yeah, we had that wrong. I think it's cool, but I don't know. I feel like I love a good old dispute and heated barbs being thrown back and forth at each other over like potential sign stealing and all that. That's what baseball needs, more of that kind of stuff. And like you said, Andy, they've sort of taken it away because of the pitch comp stuff. But I just thought that was cool. It added another wrinkle to two teams that are trying to fight their way into playoffs and playoff positioning.
Yeah, it was good to see a good old fuck you off. You don't get those
Yeah,
too much anymore.
that looked like what was it? Was one of those like Judd Apatow movies where was it Jonah Hill or somebody was just like fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. There's like a
I
gif
don't know.
about it. All right, it doesn't matter.
No,
But Brian Flair.
do you know the meme where the guys are just flicking each other off from like a foot away? They're like, fuck you, and
Oh
they're just
yeah,
keep flicking each other off. That's what it
yes,
reminded me of.
it did. It was pretty awesome for sure. All right, but speaking of like some of the advancements in baseball, I just was thinking about this last week when I was at the park, and I was curious your guys' thoughts. Should ABS challenges start counting toward players' WAR? I don't know how they would necessarily factor in, but if so, like how much should Carson Kelly be? How much increase should we see in Carson Kelly's WAR? Because he's one of the best in baseball at it. I feel like every time he's doing it behind the plate or even when he's at the plate, which I know he was joking a couple weeks ago about like his teammates have been, we're getting on him in a meeting about like, you got to do this to plate more often because you're right so often. And he ended up doing it against the Dodgers and got a bases loaded walk out of it. But I just think it's like, it's becoming part of the game. And I think ABS in general this year has been one of the most interesting developments and something that we're going to see around the game for years to come, if not forever. But like, if a guy's really good at it, they should get their WAR increase, especially as if you're a catcher. And if a guy's really bad at it, like their WAR should get bumped down, which maybe it ultimately is for a hitter. If you continually tap, like PCA did it twice last night, Tuesday night, and they were both balls. He ends up drawing a walk, so his WAR naturally will go up a little bit. But like if he did it and was wrong and it ends up being like a strikeout, for example, like should he be bumped a little bit more? I don't know how you would do this. I just think it's like an interesting thing of like, should ABS sort of be like pitch framing and count towards a player's WAR?
I was going to say really quickly too, Miguel Amaya has been just as good. He's won 44 of 67 challenges. Carson Kelly's won 45 out of 64. So Carson Kelly's percentage has just been slightly a touch better, but they have almost the same amount of challenges.
Yeah.
I'm curious if that will be incorporated of like in terms of WAR, because I think it is a valuable game aspect, right? Or like on the converse side, right? Like your framing is such a key part of it, and maybe you're not stealing as many strikes now because of ABS and the hitter's ability to challenge. But I feel like there's gonna be a way to be able to incorporate that and say like, oh yeah, like Carson Kelly or Miguel Amaya, maybe get like 0.2 WAR added because of how good this is. And I'm just throwing a number out there. I'm not saying like that's what it is. I don't know if that's even too high or too low, but like I think that is an aspect, right? If you're able to steal strikes, you're stealing outs. If you're stealing outs, you're improving your team's chances of winning. You're by definition adding wins to your team. So like I think that is a very valid argument to add this component into WAR. And maybe it already is, maybe it will be going into next season, something like that. But I think that's very valuable.
Could it also be like on the flip side? Does pitch framing, does that get accounted when you're accumulating WAR?
It's part of the defense.
Like if you're a bad pitch, like if you're a bad pitch framer and it's a strike that's at the bottom of the zone, but you're a bad pitch framer and the ump calls it a ball.
Yeah.
Like, should you be rewarded because you're a bad pitch framer, but then it's a strike? So, I mean, to me that is the most like Andy related question ever. I mean, that's like right up his alley to me. But yeah, sure.
It is.
I don't even know how WAR's accumulated. Like to me, that's such a crazy stat. I'm like, it's like Wi-Fi. Like, how does Wi-Fi exist? That's what WAR is to me. Just like it's there. I don't fucking know.
It's a good point. And it's because my Wi-Fi, how do you improve it? My Wi-Fi's had issues a couple times in this podcast, and I'm not doing anything different than in the past when I've had the same
challenge
connection.
It. Challenge it.
But WAR is really interesting because Fangraphs and Baseball Reference are the two most used WAR. But like I think MLB.com is sort of coming up with its own thing, or at least like discussing it. I don't know if that's something that they're actually going to end up doing, but like and how different it might be if they do it from Baseball Reference or Fangraphs. But like, yeah, it is interesting, and framing has always been a part of it for catchers. Like Wilson Contreras, when he was catching with the Cubs, was for the most part seen as a poor framer, so that dinged him defensively, which impacted his WAR negatively, and a lot of his work came from offense as a result. But I think we might see just an ABS column on his Fangraphs defensive page for catchers moving forward, and I don't know exactly quite like I said how this would work, but it just got me thinking as ABS is here to stay. Like guys who are really good at it, how valuable they are to their team, and right now we can't quantify it, but I'm curious if that changes in the near future.
Really quickly, kind of another trivia question. So we've mentioned how good Carson Kelly and Miguel Amaya are. Minimum 10 challenge. Do you know who the worst catcher by win percentage in challenges is?
Give us a hint.
Same division as the Cubs.
Is it Gary
He has
Sanchez?
challenged. Nope. He has challenged 16 times.
Is it William?
And he is.
No, it couldn't
No.
be William. It's got to be a backup catcher.
16 times in what?
He has won 4 of them.
Shut the fuck up. So he's at a 25% clip.
Yep. St. Louis Cardinals.
I was gonna say the
Ivan
Cardinals don't
Herrera?
challenge. Pajes. I don't know any other catchers.
Jimmy
besides-
Crooks.
Jimmy Crooks. That's a name from like when you play franchise mode in MLB
Yes.
The Show, and it's like
And you're
20,
in 20,
47.
45.
Yeah. Jimmy Crooks.
Yoel Pozo from the Cardinals is 3 of 7. He is second worst.
Wow.
Or he's
Yoel
won 3 and
Pozo.
lost 7. So, yeah.
Cardinals suck at this, son.
Yeah.
Yoho
The
Pozo,
White
is that
Sox?
the guy that was with the Rognet Odor's brother like
Yep.
10 years ago?
In that
Yeah.
scandal. Yep.
Okay.
The White Sox, I feel like anecdotally when I've watched them, their catches have been really bad, and it is not just anecdotal. Drew Romo has challenged 85 times and won 42. Edgar Caro has challenged 93 times and won 46.
Well, it's funny you mentioned this. I'm looking at just ABS challenges by team in its entirety. So on both sides of the ball, the Sox are third worst in baseball at 48%. They've attempted the second most at 353, but I mean, you do the math on all this. They have the most failed ABS challenges with 183. The next closest is the Twins at 166.
I was at a game.
The
I was at a
stretch is
game
crazy.
recently.
Yeah.
They blew their challenges in like the third inning, and like the first pitch, Sam Antonacci challenged, and it was not even close. So they lost the challenge there, and then they lost the second one in the third inning. It's like I feel like their strategy needs to improve on how
Yes.
they're challenging ABS.
Where are
it's
the
just
Cubs,
not
Kyle,
good.
on that list? Are they like in the top 5?
They're fourth, 58%.
Okay. That's
So
what
it goes. The Reds, are number 1 at 62.6. Diamondbacks 60, Tigers 58, Cubs 58, and then A's 58, like 58.8, 58.4, and 58 on the dot.
So basically, no
Yeah.
playoff teams except the Cubs in the top 5. That's kind of interesting.
In the top 10, it's the only 3 playoff teams would be, I mean, the Cubs, the Phillies, and the Dodgers.
Interesting.
You would think the Brewers would be really, I don't know why I would think the Brewers would be really good at this, but just with their history, like they're just good at, like, on the margins
Yes.
type of criteria like that.
I would-
They're 25th.
Wow. I would have thought the Brewers and the Rays would be the 2 best teams this year because, like you said, the on the margin type stuff.
Rays are 19th. The Brewers are 50% on the dot, 153 for, 153 against.
Wow. All right. Well, yeah, I just think I've been
Stats that matter.
fascinated by the ABS stuff throughout this year. So I don't know how it will come into play, but I think it might. We're talking about the Brewers, though. So the series starts next week on Monday, less than a week away from when we're recording this podcast. When you listen to this, 4-game series at Wrigley Field, Cubs, Brewers, all 4 night games. What number? The Cubs are 5.5 back right now. What number do you think the Cubs would need to get over the next few days before this stretch where they play the Brewers 7 times in 10 days to like feel good about it, to feel like the Cubs have a chance? Or do you feel like the division's out of reach now and it's just not happening?
Andy.
I was gonna say 3.5, because I think 3.5 over playing them 7 times, you probably bring it down to like best case scenario like 1.5 or 2.5. And I think that's what's the word, like you can make that up over the last 3
It's
weeks.
manageable.
Of the season. Yeah, manageable. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think if they're at 5.5 now, and if you take 4 out of 3, that's only 4.5, right? Or
4 out of 3.
4 out of 7.
You go
Jesus
4 and
Christ.
3, yes.
4 and 3, yeah. Man, my brain's just all jumbled. I'm trying to make sure the baby's still asleep, so I'm like looking back and forth. I think that's going to be my excuse. But like I think that allows you to make up that ground. Whereas like 5.5, like it's so weird how like those numbers play, because like 4.5, they had won yesterday, they'd be 4.5. Like
Yeah.
that seems even more manageable. But 5.
And then if they won Saturday to be 3.5, don't listen. I thought about this all last night.
I'm sure you did. God.
Like all those things are real though, right? Like it's why every single game matters. Like it creates more margin for error, right? Like where you're not going to go 7-0 against the Brewers, but like you want to try and win as many games as you can and be able to make up that margin. And the most realistic option is kind of being like 3.5, 2.5 games back.
Do you guys have the Cubs record against the Brewers in front of you? I'm trying to look it up real quick here, but by chance, do you guys have that?
No, I think
I can
I
look it
think
up
they
too.
have one.
I got it right here.
I think they're one
So
game
the Cubs
better.
they're 2-4 against the Brewers this year. So say they go
Oh wow.
5-2. I think they need. So what would that be? They need to be at least. So if they go 4-3, they don't. Yeah, they need to go at least 5-2 against the Brewers to have the head-to-head record. So just think, even if they stay, where are they, 5.5 back right now? We'll try to do some math on the pod. 5.5 back right now. If they go 5-2 against the Brewers, and they like when they play and they're 5.5 out, then they're 3 out or 2 out, 2.5 out. Holy shit!
Yep.
Wow, that was terrible math on my part.
And then they need to make 2.5 games up in that 3-week stretch.
Yeah, with holding the tiebreaker. So you don't need to be ahead of them. Where
So you're basically 2 and
if
back.
where if they go 4-3 against them, they only gain a game, and they're still need to
They lose
jump
the
them because they
tiebreaker.
wouldn't have the
Yeah.
head-to-head record. So it's
That's true. Good point.
like you have to hold serve here at bare minimum, right, over these next 4 games, including Wednesday's game against the Diamondbacks here, and go 5-2 against the Brewers at a minimum after that stretch to even think you have a chance. If not, then you're just playing for the top wild card spot.
Yeah, and I think even that can be in question too, because the Phillies were like the hottest team in baseball for the last couple of weeks. They've lost a couple games here recently, but they won 9 straight, and they're only 2 behind the Cubs now in the race to host that first wild card series. Because that's a different. The Cubs have held on to that first wild card spot for multiple months now. That's a different series if that's being played in Philadelphia or in San Diego or wherever else than at Wrigley. And I think the Cubs' chances of winning go dramatically down if they're playing on the road for that. So yeah, I think all of a sudden it's become just a lot more tense. And I think if we're having to go through these like mental gymnastics to figure this out, I just think that tells you that the division's not it's not mathematically out of hand, right? But like 4.5 weeks remain, and you got to go 5.5 games. And I think this week is what we'll look back to as why the Cubs didn't win the division. Saturday's loss and Tuesday's loss are the reason why will ultimately be what keeps the Cubs from having that first round.
And the two
I mean,
teams
I
that
also
are
say the 10-game losing streak was a
Well,
huge reason too.
sure.
and
You're right.
blowing that 5-0 lead against the Blue Jays on June 20th.
Fine, you're right on all those. I just think this like 2 losses in a 4-game span is just like it's sort of like the nail in the coffin for the division.
Like when you've been able to overcome the 10-game losing streak, essentially.
Yes.
To lose these. Sure, I get
Yes.
And
I
Ryan
think
Rollison
I
giving up a
think this
walk-off
is
homer
the
to
straw
Edgar
that broke the
Carroll.
camel's back, the nail in the coffin, whatever idiom you want to use.
Sure.
If they
Idioms
lose the
for
division, I think
idiots.
this is what you go back to.
Idioms for idiots. Before we move on real quick, the two teams that are chasing the Cubs in for the top wildcard spot, the Phillies and the Padres, correct? Right now, the Cubs would have the head-to-head advantage over both of those teams. So those teams would have to have a better record. If the Cubs have the same record as those teams, the Cubs would obviously have home field.
That's a huge deal for sure. So and that's also by virtue of the Cubs played the Phillies before they fired was it Rob Thompson and hired Don Mattingly.
Yeah.
So they caught him at the worst time of the season, best time for the Cubs. But all right, so next week we'll talk a little bit like fantasy football Bears stuff. But before we go on this pod, it's my turn for that guy rocked. So I have a few clues for you guys. The first one, difficult clue, but sitting right next to me, I have this Sports Illustrated Presents baseball magazine, and this guy is on the cover of it. I don't really want to say what year, because that'll
makes
give
sense.
things. Yes. So he was a cover athlete. It is not super recent, certainly within our lifetimes, but not super recent. We have
Antonio Alfonseca.
No, we have discussed.
Is it a Cubs player?
Yes, it's a Cubs player.
Okay.
We have discussed him over the last few weeks. He, in his best season with the Cubs, earned MVP votes. Finished 18th in the NL MVP voting in this year that I'm talking about, and led the league in two categories that year, 2 rather important categories.
Okay.
Any
So I'm going to
guesses?
say it's probably early 2000s.
It was around there, yes. It wasn't early 2000s, but it was around there.
All right, so either late 90s or late 2000s. It's a good question.
His best year with the Cubs came with his first year with the Cubs. He only spent he had a great year with the Cubs, and then the next year struggled, and then ended up moving on and going to play in the American League. He was actually released. Wait, hold on, I'm double checking. It was a part of a trade, a waiver trade, back when you could do that in August.
So he was traded away from the Cubs in August as a
Yes.
waiver trade.
And
was this in the 90s?
It was the late 90s, and then he did return in the early 2000s to the Cubs. but did not end up pitching in the big leagues with them. So there's another.
Oh, pitching.
Pitching. Oh.
Okay. I was thinking Jose Hernandez.
No, Jose
shortstop.
Hernandez, I don't think ever got any MVP votes.
Yeah, probably not. Steve Traxel.
No. I'll give you another hint.
Kevin Tapani.
No. So the team that he is most known for over his career is not the Cubs. It is an NL West team, which is where he was. He spent 7 years of his career before coming to the Cubs, and he came to the Cubs as a big free agent signing.
Okay, so pitcher free agent signing. So it's probably didn't come from the Dodgers, I'm assuming.
Came from the Giants.
I was gonna say the Giants. Okay.
I'm stumped. I don't know.
What
like my
hand does he
brain's in a
throw with,
fog
left
'cause
or
I'm
right?
Right. And he is known for his mustache and was on
ROD? I knew it.
and was
Fuck,
on
I
the
knew it.
150 team. For those of you guys not watching the video version, we recommend on YouTube, but I'm holding up a Sports Illustrated Baseball 98 saving the Cubs Rod Beck with his handlebar mustache on here. He was he earned
That should have been more
MVP votes
obvious.
in 98. He finished a league high 81 game, or he appeared in a league high 81 games and finished a league high 70 games with 51 saves. So remember, games finished are not always saves, just anytime he finishes, pitch at the end of a game. And had a 3.02 ERA. The next year he had a 7.80 ERA in 31 games and ended up getting traded to the Red Sox on August 31st. And was actually really good for the Red Sox on the stretch. But he was really interesting that he was on the Cubs 150 team that I know Marquis and the Cubs just released this week. But really fascinating addition, I feel like, to that because he had that 51 save season. But yeah, he really only had one good year with the Cubs. And I would have thought, if you had asked me before I looked this up, because I grew up during that time, and like I would have thought he made a bigger impact on the Cubs, but I still don't know that he's part of like the 150 year history of the Cubs. He is in my world, but maybe not big picture.
If that's the threshold, like Chapman should have been over him, right?
Yeah,
like
100%.
They don't win a World Series without him.
Yeah.
Wade Davis probably has a better claim. Like
throw in Michael Wirtz. I mean, who knows? Yeah. Mark Leiter Jr., Brad Keller. Yeah.
You're right.
Fuck, throwing Assad.
Yeah. When it's all said and done, Assad, he has a couple more years of control left. Maybe he is on the Cubs 200 team, or 160 or whatever.
The other one that kind of bugged me, I know we're pushing time here, and maybe you guys can correct me, but like Soriano was an all-star that first year, get it 100%. Accumulated eight WAR in Chicago, like great player over his career, fine player for the Cubs. I don't think he's a top 150 or not top all-time 150 year team. Like, am I wrong in thinking that?
Oh, this is a good debate. Who would you have put in over him?
That's a good question.
I mean,
Cliff Floyd.
Like, really, like you could go back. Like I gave you guys some names offline of like some of the guys that I think it was Chance that didn't, like Tinker Diver to Chance. Chance was the one that of that trio that didn't make this team.
No Zobrist.
But like
no Zobrist.
Zobrist was going to be my guy that I was going to say, like World Series MVP.
That's who I was looking up right now. Mm-hmm.
And what was it, 3-4 great years after that? Like,
yeah.
Again, if the threshold is one good season, Zobrist over Soriano. And if you're building a team, you want the versatility, right? Like,
yeah, and I think
this fake team.
The Zobrist thing is like, obviously you can include everybody from 2016, but when you talk about the most, 5 to 7 or at least top 10 most influential guys from that team, I mean, Zobrist is on that list, right? Like the World Series MVP, the guy who hit cleanup for a big portion of that year. Like, I think it's like Javi, Rizzo, Bryant, the 3 starting pitchers, and Zobrist are like the top 7 guys that I would say are the most impactful.
Right. And like, sure, like again, you're right. You don't want to include all the 2016 guys, but like also like with like not trying to like shit on the franchise, but like they're the lovable losers, right? Like there's a big chunk of their franchise where like you're probably not going to include players from certain eras. So like,
Yeah.
well, that limits that creates your window to choose players within the last like 10, 15 years, really.
All right. Well, that'll do it for That Guy Rock. That will do it for this edition of the Windy City Breakdown. We'll be back next week. We'll be recording either right after or during the Cubs Brewers series. So we'll do a bunch more math for you and figure out how many games the Cubs are back and what the chances are and what they need to do over the final games against the Brewers or whatever to figure that out. And we'll have a little fantasy football and Bears chat next week. And I know we have some drafts coming up. Everybody has peak draft season, but also really interesting Bears storyline. So we'll veer off of some baseball talk next week, talk a little bit football. But for Andy and Kyle, I'm Tony. Thanks as always for tuning in and listening to the Windy City Breakdown.